The Clippers have just gone all in and decided to trade for superstar James Harden. Yes, James Harden is now out of Philadelphia after a strenuous tenure there, and we don't really know what the Phillies are going to do from here, but what we do know is that the Clippers look to be one of, if not the favorite in the Western Conference. I mean, all of a sudden, this team is full of superstars. We're talking Russell Westbrook, Kawhi Leonard, Paul George, and now James Harden. I mean, if this team was formed back in 2018, then we're probably looking at the greatest super team of all time. Unfortunately for the Clippers, this all came together 5 years later, and now most of these guys have dealt with a ton of injuries, have had a lot of off-the-court issues with plenty of other teams, and have been tossed around the league quite a bit. So maybe they aren't the juggernaut that we automatically assume they are, and we don't even know how all four of these guys are going to mesh together. Now, we have seen the guard duo of James Harden and Russell Westbrook before. That was almost 10 years ago at this point, back in OKC, and instead of having Kevin Durant, a young superstar Kevin Durant, this time they have Kawhi Leonard. Instead of having Serge Ibaka, they got Paul George. So that's probably an improvement. But what did that Thunder team do all those years ago? Well, before they imploded, they were able to make a finals run where they ended up losing to the Miami Heat. So maybe with this go around, James Harden and Russell Westbrook will be able to figure things out. Now, we've also seen Paul George and Kawhi Leonard play together for quite some time now. I mean, this is year 5 of the duo being formed. I'm pretty sure they both ended up on the team back in 2019, where Paul George was acquired via trade. Yes, the Clippers gave up almost all their future picks at the time and a young rising star in Shea, while Kawhi Leonard was acquired through free agency. Yeah, the Toronto Raptors kind of lost him for nothing, but they were able to get an NBA Finals ring out of it, so there's that. Now, the team in 2019 had a lot more depth, a lot more role players to it than it does now. Let's be real. Had the duo of Kawhi Leonard and Paul George been able to stay healthy for most of the last 4 seasons, then the Clippers would probably have a ring by now. Unfortunately, that's not the case, and instead, their highest achievement together has been a Western Conference Finals appearance, and that was all the way back in 2021, something they haven't come close to replicating since. In fact, they've been struggling way more since that Western Conference Finals appearance. Let's be real here. Those first 2 seasons were some of the best basketball this duo has played together in LA. And even then, injuries were rampant amongst the team. And the Los Angeles Clippers have already gone through their fair share of scapegoats. After the first season fell apart and it didn't work out, Doc Rivers was eventually let go. They decided to move on. I mean, he failed with Lob City and now he's failing with a new duo. Yeah, the dude's time was up. And then they got a new head coach in Ty Lue, who has been solid for the team, but he's also made some questionable decisions, especially in the postseason. However, Kawhi Leonard and Paul George are as healthy as they will ever be, so, injuries in 2023 shouldn't be an excuse. Hell, Steve Ballmer even went on Paul George's podcast during the offseason, and he basically told him straight up, you and Kawhi gotta pull your shit together, or we're gonna have to break it up. We're gonna have to do something different. And now that James Harden is there, maybe they have an extra season to hold on to this little thing, because they've basically given up their entire future, and if things fall apart now, this franchise is ruined. Now, a pairing I have yet to mention was Paul George and Russell Westbrook. Honestly, that's just kind of because I forgot about it, but those two guys did spend 2 seasons together in OKC after they had lost Durant and James Harden. The Thunder were still trying to compete with Westbrook, so they decided to pull in a really good all-star at the time in Paul George from Indiana and really pair that duo up, and hopefully they would get out of the first round, which they had been stuck in for the past season. Though the addition of Paul George didn't really seem to change much for the OKC Thunder, because in the 2 seasons that him and Westbrook were a duo there, they won 48-49 games, which is solid. Westbrook was still in his prime, playing phenomenal basketball. However, the team got bounced in the first round twice, and that's when the Thunder decided to pull the plug and start this rebuild with 1,000 picks. I mean, Paul George, he got sent off to the Clippers, and Westbrook was shipped out of town. And ever since that moment, I want to say the 2019-ish season, 3 of these guys have essentially been journeymen. I would count Kawhi because he's been on 2 teams since then, which is more than anybody expected him to ever be moved. But basically, James Harden and Russell Westbrook have been on the move a ton these past few seasons. It just really sucks to see this for guys like James Harden and Russell Westbrook because they are both former MVPs who just haven't been able to find a place they can call home. I mean, after leaving the Thunder, which is the only place he knew for a really long time, Westbrook has not stopped moving. He spent 1 season with Harden in Houston. Yes, these guys always seem to come together no matter what. He also then spent 1 year with Washington, where he played really well with Bradley Beal, but again, things just didn't work out. And then he had a little stint with the Lakers, where he played, I want to say, 1.5 seasons there. But that was even worse for Westbrook. And James Harden hasn't had such a good time either. I mean, he's been passed around the block a few times. Like I said, after that year with Westbrook, he was also on the move. He asked out of Houston and ended up getting shipped to Brooklyn, where he would go on to play with Kevin Durant, Kyrie for about 1.5 seasons. That was ugly, a terrible experiment. Probably how this Clippers one is going to end if we're being honest. And then he forced his way out of Brooklyn, ended up in Philadelphia, where he was paired with eventual MVP Joel Embiid, and you would think that is the place that Harden's gonna call home. You're wrong. You see, while I understand why Harden left Houston, because they were clearly rebuilding, and I'll even cut him a break for leaving Brooklyn because that team had been a mess even before he had got there. But the fact that he didn't give Philadelphia a chance, he left after 1.5 seasons, is ridiculous. I mean, come on, you gotta stick it out. You got an MVP on your team, Harden. What more can you ask for? And maybe it was because his relationship with Daryl Morey had gotten so ugly that he wanted out. But it's getting to the point where he's forced himself out of 3 different situations in the past 2.5 years. I can't defend this action anymore. It's getting ridiculous, Harden. I can't take it. I mean, I'm a fan of you, but come on, bro. Hopefully the Clippers work out, but I'm a Lakers fan, so I don't even really want you to win, and I think it'd be 10 times more interesting for the league if this team failed and just didn't work out. Now, over the past few seasons, people have really started to question whether the play style of James Harden or Russell Westbrook is good enough to lead a team to a championship, because when they were leads of their own teams, they were very good, but they never were able to win it all as them being the main guys. So now that they're kind of secondary stars to Kawhi Leonard and Paul George, maybe this time they'll be able to climb the mountaintop. But that's about it for this video. I just wanted to cover the trade and what happened. I didn't even talk about the pieces that Harden got moved for, but let's be real. The Clippers lost all of their wing depth in that trade, which we knew was probably going to happen. However, the Clippers didn't give up any of their valuable young assets, so that's wild. I do think that maybe, just maybe, the 76ers got fleeced. However, they did get 2 future first-round picks, which can be valuable if this situation just doesn't click. Anyway, that's about it. Catch y'all later. Much love. Peace.